Chelsea Manning has now officially requested a presidential pardon. Of course, Chelsea Manning, the former Army private first class who was charged and convicted under the name Bradley Manning. Slate is reporting that Chelsea Manning has submitted an official request for a presidential pardon. In a letter addressed to President Obama, Manning's lawyer submitted a petition for commutation of his sentence. His is the language used in the actual letter by Chelsea Manning's attorney. It is not my language. To give you the background, last month, Manning was sentenced to 35 years in prison for leaking classified documents to WikiLeaks. The earliest that Manning could be considered for parole is 7 years from now. In the letter, Manning's lawyer writes, "The length of Private Manning's sentence is one that we would expect for someone who disclosed information in order to harm the United States. He disclosed information that he believed could spark a meaningful public debate on the costs of war, and specifically on how we value human life." Again, the male pronouns being used in the letter by Manning's attorney, those are not of my choosing. The letter also refers to Manning as a military whistleblower. And of course, Lewis, the term whistleblower has become, I don't want to call it a controversial term necessarily. It's more a term over which there is disagreement as to its definition and to what really constitutes a whistleblower. I have to say that I'm pretty torn about this. On the one hand, I do think that the government drastically overreacted with the charges that were initially used to prosecute Manning, including aiding and abetting the enemy. I think that was outrageous, found not guilty on that particular charge. On the other hand, this was factually against the law, what Chelsea Manning did. On the other hand, a lot of the documents that Manning took and passed on to WikiLeaks have since been declassified, but that doesn't change the severity of the crime at the time that it took place. I go back to what I've been saying for a few weeks now, which is I think that the proper sentence here is to serve until the end of President Obama's current and last term, and then to be pardoned. And that would certainly be, if you take into consideration the years that Manning has already served in the lead up to the trial, and the abuse and mistreatment that Manning suffered while waiting trial and during the lead up to the trial, that, including time served plus now through the end of President Obama's term, to me seems like the fair sentence.
That very well may be. I'm not really going to comment on that. I do think that the sentence was a little too steep, but I think there's no way that there's going to be a pardon here. I mean, I think if Obama had to make any politically motivated decisions about this, obviously the correct decision would be not to pardon Chelsea Manning. I don't think Obama really has to consider that, but if he were to pardon Chelsea Manning, there would be a huge distraction from the right. It would be harmful. It would just be a huge waste of time.
So you're not saying you believe
that really never ends.
You're not saying that it would be wrong. You're just thinking that politically it would be just a disaster for President Obama and Democrats if that were to happen.
I think it would be a huge disaster, yes.
I'm not sure what the reaction would be. There are always controversial presidential pardons when a president is leaving office. The opposing party always tries to make a big deal out of it. This is different because there was, well, I don't know. I mean, it's always the case that crimes were committed. I mean, that's why people need to be pardoned, because they were convicted of crimes. I don't know that I agree with you completely, Lewis. I think that President Obama could pardon Chelsea Manning, and it would not be significantly more controversial than what happens with other presidents.
I don't think it's going to happen. To be perfectly honest, I don't think the president would want to, but we'll see.